Surprise? I just sold the lake house to Jacqueline's dad for $700,000. Don't worry about the paperwork, I signed for both of us. You never really cared about that place anyway. I stared at the message on my phone, unable to believe what I was reading. My coffee sat untouched on my desk as I tried to process what Kevin, my husband, had done. He also sent a picture. He was standing in front of the lake house, smiling like a fool. His arm was around a young blonde woman who looked like she could be in college. I had never seen her before. She looked no older than 27. Let me introduce myself. My name is Christina Hendricks. I'm 37 years old. Today, I found out that my husband of 16 years not only has a much younger girlfriend, but also tried to sell my family's lake house to her father. That house wasn't just some building. It had been in my family for 3 generations. My grandfather built it with his own hands in 1959. I spent every summer of my childhood there. It was filled with memories of swimming, campfires, and laughter. When my parents passed away 3 years ago, they left the house to me, and only me. I finally took a sip of my coffee. It was cold now, but I didn't care. Strangely, I felt calm. A few months ago, this news would have destroyed me. But that was before I started noticing things. I found lipstick-stained receipts in Kevin's coat. I saw large amounts of money disappearing from our shared bank account. I had a feeling something wasn't right, so I hired a private investigator. Unfortunately, he confirmed everything I was afraid of. Another message came through. Jacqueline's dad already sent the money. We're thinking of remodeling, maybe adding a pool. Time to bring some youth to the place. I couldn't help but laugh a little. Kevin had always been arrogant, but this was something else. Selling property that wasn't even his? That was a new low. Then my phone buzzed again. This time, it was a number I didn't recognize. Hi, Christina, it's Jacqueline. Just wanted to thank you for being so cool about the house. Daddy's super excited to make it our new vacation spot. Kevin says you never use it anyway. I saved her number but didn't respond. Instead, I called our family lawyer, Kane Williamson. As soon as he answered, he said, Christina, I was just about to call you. I received some strange documents about the lake house. Let me guess, I said calmly. I see, I said, leaning back in my chair. He tried to forge my signature to transfer the house? Yes, Kane replied. And it wasn't even a good fake. Your husband isn't exactly skilled at copying signatures. I heard papers shuffling on his end as he continued. But here's the interesting part. Jacqueline's father already sent $700,000 to Kevin's personal account. $700,000? I asked, even though I already knew the answer. Yes. And since Kevin had no legal right to sell the lake house, this definitely counts as fraud. He paused for a second, then said, So, what do you want to do? What are our options? I asked. Well, Kane said with a bit of a chuckle, we could call Jacqueline's dad right now and let him know the truth. Then, we start legal action against Kevin. Or, I asked. Or, he said, we could wait until they try to file the ownership papers with the county office. Once they do, the county will realize something's wrong. That might hit them harder. Sometimes people only learn when they get a big wake-up call. I thought about Kevin's proud message and Jacqueline's clueless text. I thought about the, nights I had spent wondering why he had become so cold and distant. Let's wait, I said. How much time do we have? With that much money involved, they'll probably try to file everything in the next few days, Kane replied. I looked at the photo on my desk. It was from last summer. Kevin and I standing in front of the lake house. He was smiling in the picture, but now the smile looked fake. Was he already planning this back then? Keep me updated, I told Kane. Thanks. After we hung up, I finally replied to Kevin's text. Congrats on the sale. Hope everything turns out just the way you deserve, he answered almost immediately. Glad you're finally being reasonable. I'll send someone to pack your stuff. I looked around my office at everything I had worked so hard to build while he was making secret plans behind my back. The lake house wasn't just a building. It held memories, love, and my family's history. The fact that Kevin thought he could sell it like it was just another piece of property showed who he truly was. Another message popped up on my phone. Kevin says we should throw a housewarming party after the renovations. You're totally welcome to come if you want. I didn't respond. I set the phone down and smiled quietly to myself. Let them have their party. Let them plan their new life. They had no idea the real surprise was still coming. And this time, it would be mine to give. I would be the one watching everything fall apart. I stood up from my chair and walked to the window. The city stretched out in front of me. I had worked in this office for 7 years, ever since I opened my own law practice. Kevin once told me it was a waste of money. He said my clients didn't care about a view, but I cared. This space meant something to me, just like the lake house did. I cared about family, hard work, and respect, things Kevin clearly stopped valuing a long time ago. Just then, my phone buzzed. A message from Kane popped up. They just submitted the paperwork to the county. Should take about 72 hours. I smiled as the sky outside turned orange and gold with the setting sun. In just 3 days, Kevin would find out what he had really done. He would realize he had tried to sell something he didn't even own. And I'd be right here, watching the fallout from a safe distance. Because sometimes the best way to get back at someone is to let them suffer the results of their own choices. The next 3 days moved painfully slow. I kept my phone with me at all times, waiting for the moment the truth would hit him. While I waited, Kevin and Jacqueline kept sending messages, full of remodeling plans, excited ideas, and little comments about how the house needed a younger touch. I didn't reply to any of them. Then, at exactly 2:30 p.m. on the second day, my phone rang. I knew who it was before I even looked. What the hell is this? Kevin's voice came through the speaker, loud and angry. All his fake politeness was gone. The county just rejected the paperwork, he said. They're saying I had no right to sell the house. I leaned back in my chair, relaxed and smiled. Oh, really? I said. Did they explain why? Don't. Play games with me, Christina, he snapped. They said the house is only in your name. That doesn't make sense. We're married. Everything should be joint property. I could hear Jacqueline's voice in the background. She sounded scared and confused, asking what was going on. Not everything is joint, Kevin, I said calmly. The lake house was inherited from my parents. It was never in your name. You knew that. You knew, he shouted. You knew and still let me go through with it. No, I said, my voice steady. I didn't let you sell it. I let you try to sell it. There's a difference. I stared out the window again as his voice kept coming through the phone, now mixed with Jacqueline's panicked questions. I didn't say another word. Let them figure it out. I had already done my part. And now I was just watching the pieces fall. I kept my voice steady and professional. By the way, how is Mr. Matthew taking the news? There was silence on the other end of the phone. Long, tense silence. I imagined Kevin standing there, completely stunned. Finally, he spoke. His voice was tight and filled with anger he was trying to hide. He's threatening to sue, Kevin said. He said if he doesn't get his money back right away, he's going to the police. Well, that's unfortunate, I replied calmly. Especially since you've already spent some of that money. Haven't you? There was another long pause. I could almost picture him pacing the floor, running his hands through his hair the way he always did when he felt like everything was falling apart. How do you know that? He finally asked. The same way I know about the apartment you rented for Jacqueline 2 months ago, I said. The jewelry you bought her, and the weekend trips to Hawaii. I paused for a moment to let my words sink in. I'm not as clueless as you thought. Kevin. You had me followed? He asked, shocked. His tone might have been funny if it wasn't so hypocritical. After everything he'd done behind my back, he was shocked that I found out? Let's just call it doing my homework, I said. Now, I'm guessing Mr. Matthew is going to want his $700,000 back. Soon. I don't... He started, then stopped. I can't pay it all back right now. In the background, I heard Jacqueline's voice grow louder. What do you mean you can't pay it back? She snapped. My dad is going to freak out. I stayed quiet, letting them argue. For a moment. Jacqueline's voice kept getting higher and more panicked. Kevin tried to calm her down, but it was clear things were falling apart fast. You know, fraud is a serious crime, I said after a moment. Forging a signature, trying to sell property you don't own, that's not just a mistake. That's something people go to jail for. You wouldn't, Kevin said, but I could hear the fear in his voice. I don't have to, I told him. Mr. Matthew seems more than capable of taking care of that himself. Suddenly, I heard a door slam through the phone. Jacqueline's voice was fading, calling out for her father. Kevin's breathing had become fast and uneven. He was clearly panicking. "Christina, please," he begged. "We can work something out. I'll move out. I'll give you anything you want in the divorce. Just help me fix this." I thought about all the little lies over the years, the ones I had let go, the ones I had ignored because I wanted to believe in us. But not this time. "You know what's funny?" I said, leaning back in my chair. "You really thought you'd get away with it." I kept my voice calm and casual, as if we were just having a normal conversation. "You were so busy planning your new life," I said, "that you forgot to check whose name was actually on the house deed. Just like you forgot to check whose name was on the investment account, the one you used to pay for Jacqueline's apartment." "What are you talking about?" Kevin snapped. "The account you emptied last month," I explained. "It was in my name, too. Every time you took money out or moved it around, it was recorded. Every single transaction is on paper. Mr. Matthew might want to see those records." "You're bluffing," he said, but I could hear the fear starting to creep into his voice. "Am I?" I replied. "Check your email." I had sent him everything: bank statements, transfer records, even some text messages between him and Jacqueline from 3 months ago. Messages that clearly showed they had been making plans behind my back. There was a pause, then a sharp breath. He was reading them. "How did you even get those?" he asked. "Let's just say," I replied, "I learned from your mistakes." "Kevin, I learned to keep records of everything." Suddenly, I heard a door open in the background. A man's angry voice followed. I guessed it was Mr. Matthew. Kevin's voice changed. Now he sounded rushed and nervous. "I have to go," he said quickly. "We're not finished with this conversation." "Actually," I said with a small smile, "I think we are. Good luck with Mr. Matthew. I hear he has a great lawyer." And then I ended the call. I leaned back in my chair and took a deep breath. For the first time in months, I felt lighter. Through my office window, I saw dark clouds gathering in the sky. It felt like the perfect weather for what Kevin was about to go through, a storm of his own making. My phone buzzed. It was a message from Kane, my lawyer. Mr. Matthews' lawyer just called. "They're moving forward with criminal charges unless the full amount is paid back immediately." I smiled and quickly replied, "Keep me posted. I have a feeling things are about to get very interesting." I looked at a framed photo on my desk. It was taken at the lake house last summer. My parents, my siblings, and even Kevin were in it. At the time, I hadn't seen it, but now it was clear. While everyone else smiled naturally, Kevin's smile looked stiff, almost fake. Like he wasn't really there. Maybe deep down I had known something was wrong, but I didn't want to see it. Now I did. And finally, I wasn't afraid to face it anymore. I was already looking ahead, toward a future that didn't include Kevin. And the fallout from his actions came faster and hit harder than even I expected. By that evening, Mr. Matthew had walked into the police station with a full file of documents. He was ready to press charges. Fraud, forgery, theft. He wasn't taking anything lightly. Meanwhile, Kevin kept calling. Again and again. Each call sounded more desperate than the last. He had left 7 voicemails in a row by the time I picked up. "Please, Christina," he begged. "Matthew's serious about this. He's really pressing charges. I could end up in jail." I was sitting at the lake house out on the dock, watching the sunset. My feet dangled just above the water, and the lake was glowing with golden light. The air smelled like summer and peace. It was quiet, calm, a complete contrast to the storm Kevin was facing. "Well," I said simply, "that's usually what happens when you commit fraud." "I'll do anything," he said quickly. "I'll give you full ownership of everything in the divorce. Just help me fix this." I couldn't help but laugh. Full ownership of what, Kevin? The house you tried. To sell is already mine. The investment account you emptied was in my name. So, what exactly are you offering me? There was silence on the line. He had nothing left. That's what I thought, I added. Oh, and by the way, I continued, Jacqueline stopped by earlier. His voice changed immediately, sharper, and more panicked. Why? What did she say? She came to apologize, I said. Apparently, her father showed her all the proof. The texts you sent her months ago. The ones where you promised to leave me. Kevin didn't answer, but I could imagine the look on his face. She was shocked, Kevin. She came here crying. Her mascara was all over her face. She said you told her we were separated. That we were only staying married for appearances. I'd made Jacqueline a cup of tea. I didn't yell. I didn't fight. I just let her sit with the truth. Sometimes the best kind of revenge is doing nothing. Just letting people see who someone really is. She's gone now, Kevin finally said, his voice cracking. She went back to her father's house. She also said she's going to focus on her career instead of wasting time on lying older men, I added. Her words, not mine. Then I heard something crash on his end. He cursed under his breath. Oh. And one more thing, I said casually. Mr. Matthews' lawyer called. They're willing to drop the criminal charges if you repay the full amount within 72 hours. I paused, letting that sink in. Pretty generous of them, don't you think? I can't come up with that kind of money in just 3 days, Kevin said, his voice full of panic. Actually, you can, I replied. Sell your fancy boat. Take money from your retirement account. Sell those silly collector cars you bought last year. That might be enough. There was another loud crash in the background, something breaking again, followed by the sound of Kevin breathing hard like he was trying not to lose control. You're enjoying this, aren't you? He snapped. No, Kevin, I said calmly. I'm not enjoying this. I'm just finally seeing who you really are. Then I ended the call. I sat quietly, looking out over the lake. The water was still and smooth like glass. The colors of the sky reflected perfectly in it. My grandfather used to say, still waters run deep. He meant that the quietest people often think the deepest thoughts. I think he would have been proud of how things turned out. Over the next week, I stayed in the background and let my lawyer handle everything. Through him, I watched Kevin scramble to raise the money. He had to sell his favorite things, his boat, the expensive cars, and even empty out his retirement savings. I heard he even borrowed from friends. It was a mess. But in the end, he managed to pay Mr. Matthew back, just hours before the deadline. After that, our divorce moved quickly. Kevin, tired and completely defeated, didn't fight me on anything. He signed the papers quietly and gave me exactly what I asked for. Not that there was much left to give. He had already lost almost everything. The last time I saw him was at the courthouse. He looked different, older, worn out. His expensive clothes were gone. Instead, he wore plain, cheap ones. He looked like someone who had finally been forced to face the truth. I never meant for it to go this far, he said softly. No, I replied. You never meant to get caught. That's different. He nodded slowly, his shoulders sagging. The lake house. It really is beautiful, he said. I should have appreciated it more. You should have appreciated a lot of things more, Kevin, I said. He turned to leave, then stopped and looked back one last time. What will you do now? He asked. I smiled, thinking about the plans I had already drawn up. I wasn't going to change the lake house into something new. I was going to restore it, bring it back to the way my grandfather had built it. Simple, strong, and full of history. I'm going to keep building the life I deserve, I told him, and this time I'm doing it my way. The following weekend, I picked up the first paintbrush. A new beginning had already begun. I decided to host a family reunion at the lake house. It had been a long time since we were all together. Cousins, aunts, uncles, people Kevin had slowly pushed out of my life over the years, came back for the weekend. The house that once felt empty was now full of familiar voices, laughter, and love. We sat around the fire pit, shared meals on the porch, and told stories late into the night. Everyone remembered the good times, the summers we spent swimming in the lake, fishing off the dock, and eating homemade meals in the kitchen. We talked about my grandfather and how he built the house with his own hands. We talked about how close we all used to be, and how important it was to keep that connection alive. That evening, I stood on the dock and watched the kids splash around in the water. The adults chatted nearby, some holding drinks, others just enjoying the cool breeze. The setting sun painted the lake in shades of orange and pink. As I looked around, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. The lake house was alive again. There was joy in the air, the kind of joy that had been missing for far too long. The sound of laughter echoed through the trees, and I knew my grandfather would have been proud. This was the life he had wanted for us, a place where family came together, where love and memories were made. My phone buzzed in my pocket. It was a text from Kane, my lawyer. Final divorce papers are filed. It's officially over. I stared at the message for a moment, then looked back out at the lake. The water was calm, stretching out to the horizon. I smiled. No, I thought. It's not over, it's just beginning. People often say that revenge means getting even, but I've learned something better. Sometimes the best kind of revenge is freedom. Freedom to move on. Freedom to live a life that's honest and true. Freedom to be surrounded by people who love you, not for what you have, but for who you are. I had spent years trying to fix something that was never whole. Now I was free to build something new, something better. The lake house stands as a symbol of that. It's not just a building or a piece of land. It's a home filled with history, a place that carries stories, strength, and love. It's more than just a victory over betrayal. It's the start of something meaningful. This time, I'm not looking back. This time, I'm building forward, with hope, with love, and with everything I've learned.